Mr. Transformers 96 here with another Transformers custom video. This time I'm going to be talking about my newest custom, that being Transformers Decepticon from the last night, Berserker. So this is a custom that I've been receiving, a fair amount of requests to do, especially since, I've kind of, when I did all the other Decepticons from the last night, I claimed it as, I finished a complete set of the Decepticons. I had a lot of people telling me, you gotta do Berserker to call it a complete set. Fair enough, he's in the movie for 2 seconds, doesn't interact with any other Transformers, but he is a Decepticon in the movie, so I decided to do him, and it actually turned out much better than I thought. I was mainly going to do this simply because I had the parts for it. It was just simply that, I had the parts for it, didn't have to buy anything else, and I could do it easily. So that was why I was going to do this. However, when I started doing it, I kind of really started to get some ideas how to do things with paint, as well as just in general how to change the sculpt a bit, that really got me excited and really piqued my interest as to this custom in general, and I really actually like the end result a lot. So first of all, you might be wondering why I chose the crankcase mold instead of the Berserker mold from last night. There are 3 reasons that I decided to do that. First of all, it was because of convenience. I needed to do my Dreadbot custom. I needed the body of Berserker and the head from Crankcase, and therefore I had a spare body from Crankcase and head from Berserker, and therefore, putting them together would be easy for me to do because I had the spare parts already. Then the next reason is I really like the claw section on Crankcase. These nice big claws, I like those anyway, and I think that they work great with Berserker, because in the movie you can really see his claws. They look very intimidating, much bigger than in Dark of the Moon. Who knows if they're actually bigger, but they have more of a presence in the scene from the last night, in my opinion. So I really like the fact that the crankcase mold would allow you to have the big claws. And then lastly, it was so that it would be different looking, because I didn't really just want the Berserker figure that I made to look like a repaint of my Dreadbot figure, because I'd be displaying them together. I wanted them to look different, look individual, and therefore by having their molds reversed, essentially, with because I use the same body and head, but just kind of reversed which is on which, that allowed this one to stay fresh and new and not looking like it was a repaint of Dreadbot at all. So that's why I did that. Let's get on to it. Let's talk about actually what I did with this actual custom. So I've got a lot of Dread figures here, just all sorts of different versions of Crankcase and Berserker and Crowbar and Dreadbot and the whole bit. So I've got quite a little Dread army going here. But anyway, so what I essentially did was I used the, of course, Berserker head on here on the body of Crankcase. The way I did that was pretty simple. I had to cut the other head off, because the Crankcase figure, his head isn't on just by a ball joint or anything. It's like actually on via a pin that can't be removed. So I did have to cut it off completely. Had to cut the entire thing down and got rid of it. And then I had a spare little joint that I cut off of the Dreadbot figure. I had a little joint there, and I just glued that joint onto the little platform of Crankcase's neck, and then was able to pop him on. So he does still maintain his full articulation. He's got a full articulated head. It's quite limited just because of the dreads, but nonetheless, it's fully articulable. Well, that doesn't make sense. That's not a real word. It's fully able to articulate, so it does have full range, but that's how I got the head on. Then I took off a few panels. Originally, I wanted to leave this guy so that he would be transformable, but then when I decided to actually add in the restraints, that obviously would take away the transformable aspect, and therefore I decided to take off a few panels. So I took off the arm panels here, like these. I took those off, and the back panel I also took off. So just took off a couple panels just to more streamline them, and things like that. Just nothing too extreme. Had I not added these details on, I would have kept those panels on though. And then what really excited me about this, when I came up with the idea to actually leave the restraints on, I wanted to do that so that it would look different, it would be unique, because when I did my other Decepticon Transformer customs from the last night, I was really like the first person to do a lot of those characters. Like, I didn't really have any other customs to go off of. I think I was the first person to do Dreadbot and Nitro, at least, and I was the first one to like extensively change Onslaught from what I know. Some other people did Onslaught, but it was mainly really small things. So I think that I was one of the more one of the first people to do those figures, or at least I was. I didn't see anybody else do them. But with Berserker here, since I'm doing him a little late, I've seen a lot of other custom Berserker figures, and I've never seen one with the actual restraints on. So that got me excited when I thought, hey, if I was going to do restraints, how would I do it? And so the restraints actually really got me excited about doing this custom, and I like the way that they turned out. What I actually used for the restraints, these little clips, these were just sitting on my desk, and I looked at them and went, hey, I've got quite a few of those. Those might work pretty nicely. What they are, they're from the Diamond Select Guardians of the Galaxy figures. Each one of them came with 3 clips so that you can attach their bases together. However, you don't need as many clips as they come with at all. I mean, usually to attach the 3 figures that I have, to attach the 3 pieces of the base, I use 3 clips, and each of them comes with 3. So essentially I had an extra 6 clips, and that are completely useless, so it worked out perfect. They were a nice size, and I could throw them on here. Painted them silver, of course, and I painted on the little details. These are actually, they're correct details. So I didn't just choose this lining for fun. That's actually the lining of his restraints in the movie. So I like that, as well as I like that there's a lot of hoses hanging on his arms. Now those are probably not even connected to him. They're probably just on the chair that he's attached to. However, I just like the idea of those hoses, and I thought it would be fun to keep them in there. So I left and I added these hoses in. These are just a pliable like wire, so like opposable wire is what I mean to say. So I just left 2 on this side, 1 on this side, left them a loop so it looks like gravity is kind of holding them down. I had that wire simply for the Christmas lights on that Dreadbot figure. That's what I used to attach that, so I had those extra pieces. Move these guys to the side there. So yeah, so I did just add them, and I think that looks really cool as well. The only restraints that I didn't add were the mouth restraints. I did consider it, and I did kind of look at like how it would look if I did attach some sort of pieces to represent those mouth restraints. However, I was worried about just distracting from the face and to having it look a little strange, because I have to say I really like the paint on the face. What I did was I painted essentially the entire thing a rainy day gray, I believe is the color of it. Anything that wasn't a car panel, because originally I wanted to leave it so I could transform him. So I painted everything just a rainy day gray, and then I did a silver wash on it, just kind of brushed things silver, gave it a little bit more dimension, made it shine a bit more. And then I went back in and just colored a couple of the panels a darker gray, and then I added a bit of a darker wash. So there's actually quite a complex amount of paint going on there in the actual Transformer himself, lots of things going on. In the face, I did essentially the same thing. However, I did only some silver details and some dark gray. I didn't actually use any of the lighter gray, so the face is a little darker, which I kind of like. And then I painted the what's it called? The dreads I didn't paint overall. What I mainly did though is just kind of wash into black, so to kind of made the dreads a little darker. But I think that it turned out really nice. I do like the way that the head looks a lot, and what my favorite detail on this guy is the green kind of ooze that he kind of spills out of his mouth. I like it. I like this. I did have this neon green that I used for my Mohawk custom that worked really nicely as that kind of just green ooze. So I painted a lot around his mouth, painted a couple little sections on his chest and on his shoulder, painted one little splotch on each side of his claws at the back there, and then painted a bunch on his dreads. I don't know, I like the amount of ooze that I have on him. I feel like I did a nice amount where it's not too heavy-handed, but it's very noticeable too. It's not too discreet, so I like that. I think it looks pretty cool. And then, of course, I painted some of his red details, that being the X on his chest. Also, he's got red on his arms there. I painted that as well. So yeah, so that worked out quite nicely. Again, you know, I do think that a more accurate version of Berserker would have had me use this mold, just because that's a much more accurate mold of Berserker slash crankcase in general. However, I like this a lot. If I had to do this again, I would do it the same way, because I love the fact that Berserker looks like his own unique character as compared to Dreadbot. And considering I'm going to display my last night Decepticons together, I want them to look different and to look like they're individuals. So I definitely like that a lot. And I do like the fact that this isn't just a repaint of Crankcase. He actually has Berserker's head as well. So you get it's not just a repainted figure. There's actually quite a bit that's been changed and added to it. And I like the idea of him like kind of maybe just busting out and breaking out of prison, and that's why his restraints are still on. So I kind of like that concept. So there you go. That's my custom basically. I actually, when I started to do this custom, it was more of a, well, this is one that I've got to do basically, and I've got the parts for it, so might as well get started on it. But by the end of it, I actually had gotten quite excited for this, and when I decided to add those restraints, and when the paint was coming out really nicely, it really did boost my enthusiasm for this custom, and therefore now that it's done, I really love it. I think it's great. It turned out much better than I really was anticipating it to be. So there you go. That's my custom Transformers Last Night Decepticon Berserker. My next custom, at least the one that I'm working on currently, maybe I'll slip something in before then, but the one I'm working on right now is the Leader Class Megatron. I did make a tutorial video just talking about like how my process when I do a custom, as well as specifically showing you some examples with that Leader Class Megatron. You can watch that. I did get a lot of requests to do videos, like tutorial videos like that, so if you do want to see that, feel free to check that out. However, my next actual Transformers custom review should be that Leader Class Megatron. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think of this guy, and if you have any other characters you'd like to see me do, and any other suggestions, I would definitely like to hear it. So, thanks so much for watching.